Who? Hi, I'm Larry Trocha, and today I'm going to give you some tips that'll improve your stop. And after each tip, you know, I'll mention a video that you can watch that'll give you a demonstration of what I'm talking about. And I'll put links to those videos down in the description box below this video. Okay, so when we stop our horse, there's a sequence of cues that we use when we ask the horse to stop. And that first cue is the word whoa. And I give so many lessons, and I'll have people stop their horse, and it's not uncommon for a rider to say ho, just real curt, real loud and sharp like that. And it kind of startles the horse. The way it needs to be is you need to say the word ho, maybe exhale as you say the word whoa, ho. So that it's kind of like a soothing sound, because you really want the horse to stay relaxed while he stops. And, if you scare him or startle him, he's not going to relax, And so the next part of that cue needs, it's almost simultaneous also. So the next thing you got to make sure is you're sitting down on the cheeks of your butt in the pocket of that saddle. When I say the pocket of the saddle, I don't mean push your butt back against the cantle. No, no, no. If anything, scoot forward a little bit so you can rotate down on the cheeks of your butt or your jean pockets, however you want to describe it. And that's going to require you to kind of tuck your butt underneath you, kind of round your lower back a little bit. You're kind of lowering your center of gravity is what's happening. And your shoulders, they need to be directly over your hips. Your forearms need to be in line with that horse's mouth. And that requires, having your elbows bent at the correct angle. And a lot of people will bend their wrists when they go to stop. Leave your wrists relaxed. Let them stay straight. So you've got kind of like a straight line between your elbow and the horse's mouth. It just makes a continuous line down your forearm, down the rein, and right to the horse's mouth. And we're going to stop him with a set and release, set and release, set and release motion, okay? It's not going to be a big old honking pull. It's going to be, you're going to take a couple pounds of pressure and you're going to hold it, which is the set, okay? So set, release, set, release, set, release. And like I say, I'll have a link to a video down in the description below this video that'll give you a link so you can see that in action. The other thing that needs to happen, your legs need to go relaxed. A lot of people will stiffen up their legs when it's time to stop, and you need to be relaxed. Some people, like my horses, if I quit riding, meaning if I quit urging them forward with my feet, if my legs just go relaxed, that's kind of a stopping cue for them, or at least a cue to slow down, okay? Now, here's one thing that is pretty darn important. You want to get your horse stopping at a trot first, before you stop him at the lope. Work on that stop at the trot until when you say the word whoa and barely touch him, he's really locking it up behind. The other thing to keep in mind, once you get your horse stopping really good at the trot and you're confident about it, you're sitting relaxed in the saddle on the cheeks of your butt, your legs are relaxed, you want to step it up to the slow lope. Now, when you're stopping a horse from a lope, timing is a factor. You need to say the word whoa when the horse's hind feet are just starting to come off the ground, go into the air, and on their way forward. And there's a reason why we do this. You want to say whoa at a time when the horse can shoot his front feet way up under his body and stop on his hind end. If you say whoa when his feet are on the ground, or just as soon as they hit the ground, you're going to cause him to stop on his front end. He'll come down in that jarring front end stop. And unfortunately, that's the part of the stride that most riders feel most secure in. And, that's when they'll say whoa and they'll get that front end stop and they'll think it's a training problem. It's really not a training problem. It's a timing problem. So anytime you feel the back of that saddle come up, that's when the hind end, the hind feet, are in the air and on their way forward. So every time you feel the back of that saddle come up, whoa, and sit down and apply the reins, okay? Next tip. Whenever you ask for your stop, you want to ask for the stop while the horse is accelerating. And by accelerating, I don't mean, catching a gear and taking off like a rocket. I'm talking about a nice gradual increase in speed, okay? The reason for that is because when a horse is accelerating, his hind feet are reaching farther under his body. So, while you've got him, accelerating, and like I say, it's a gradual acceleration. It's not a burst of speed. It's just a nice, slow, gradual build of speed. That's when you ask him to stop. He'll be reaching farther underneath his body, which will make him stop a little lower and more on his hocks, okay? That works great. Okay, the next tip. Teach your horse to back up really well. Now, to tell you the truth, I've put a really good stop on some horses that didn't even know how to back up. So is it mandatory? No, it's not mandatory, but it sure helps. Basically what we'll do if a horse doesn't stop, hard enough or doesn't stop on its rear end good enough, I'll back him at the end of that stop and just reinforce, hey, when I said, whoa, you needed to stop and think about pushing with your hind feet. And you can accomplish that by asking the horse to back up right after the stop. Now, you got to do this right. You say, whoa, the horse goes into the stop and you slack the reins. And at the end of the stop, if he didn't stop hard enough, you go ahead and back him up, and you back him up fast. You let him know. Now, don't back him up 20 feet, okay? You need to back him up until he just starts shuffling backwards, okay? It might only be, 4 or 5 steps, but as soon as he starts shuffling backwards quickly, that's when you quit, okay? If you back him 20, 30 feet, well, it's lost its effectiveness. It's not going to work. The other thing, you've got to ask for the backup while the horse, the instant he comes to a stop, or maybe even the instant before he comes to a complete stop. What some people will do, they'll stop, then they'll hesitate and wait for 5 or 6 seconds and then ask him to back up. Well, by then it's too late. The horse isn't going to associate it with the stop. You got to do it, again, the timing's got to be right, okay? Next tip. Some horses stop better when they are collected up, meaning you got them bridled up. You've got their head perpendicular to the ground. They are in frame. We call that in frame. When a horse is given to the rider's hands and he's all collected up, his forehead is vertical to the ground. His rear end is up under him. Some horses, you need to ask them to stop while they're in that frame. And you're just going to have to experiment with that. Some horses don't need that, but some horses do. And, like I say, they need to learn how to collect up anyway. So that's something you can't avoid. So you test them both ways, not collected up and in frame, and then, collected up and in frame. Because some horses, it makes a heck of a difference. Which brings me to the next tip. If you don't have your horse supple and giving to your hands, to the bit, to your feet, you're not going to have a lot of luck. Now, can you get a horse to stop that isn't supple? Yeah, you can. But he's not going to have the form and style that you're going to want, especially if you plan on showing that horse. A big part of the judging is the form and style in just about any event, except a timed event like barrel racing or something. But any kind of a judged event, form and style is super critical. So, you need to have him given to your hands, given to the bit, given to your legs, given to your feet, and have him supple, have him light and supple. And again, I'll leave links down in the description box to videos that'll demonstrate that. But it's really important. And being we're talking about that, let me just bring this up. I'll occasionally have somebody, call me up on the phone, uh, and they'll go, "Hey, Larry, I've done what you talked about, and it's just not working." And I'll ask him. I says, "Well, did you do this?" "Oh yeah, I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm using my hands the way you talked about." And then I say, "Well, did you check him up laterally and vertically to teach him to give to bit pressure to the side and straight back?" And they'll go, "Well, no, I didn't do that. I didn't think it was necessary." Hey, it's necessary. Whenever you're gonna try to learn from a training video, you follow those instructions to the letter. Don't omit anything or don't add anything. We all have our idea of what's going to work and what isn't. And some people, so they'll omit, part of the instruction and not have success. Wherein if they would have followed instructions to the letter, it would darn sure work for them. Okay, that's just something to keep in mind. Okay, next tip, and this is a big one. If your horse is heavy on the front end, stopping on his front end, and you've got your timing right, the way to get him on his hocks and off his front end is to roll him back at the end of that stop, or maybe even roll him back before he's completely stopped. Basically, what we're going to do is take his front end away from him so he can't use it, to stop, to brace. Okay, so if I'm building speed, if I'm going at a slow lope and then I'm building speed real gradual and I ask for the stop, and my horse goes into that stop and then transfers his weight to his front end, I'll go ahead and roll him back immediately and lope off the other direction. Or I might go right into a half turn or a spin or something like that. Do anything to take his front end away. All right. And to do that successfully, again, he's got to be light and supple. If he's not light and supple, you're not going to have a lot of luck with that, okay? Because he's got to give his head, when you do that rollback to take his front end away, he's got to give to your hand. And if you don't have him supple, he's not going to give to your hand. That's just the way it is. Next tip. When you're going to work on the stop, have the excess energy out of your horse. So what I'm talking about is if he's full of energy, say you saddle him up and you're going to ride him and you just warm him up and then you start practicing your stops. Well, if he's full of energy, he's not going to be that anxious to stop. He's going to want to go, go, go. So before I work on the stop, I'm going to work on maybe spins or flying lead changes or circles or, rolling back on the fence. I'm going to work on those things first and get that excess energy out of him. Matter of fact, if a horse has a lot of energy, probably the best thing to work on is the spin, because we need impulsion. We need that extra energy in that spin. So, I might do that for a while. Now, don't overdo it. Don't drill your horse. If you drill your horse, you're going to make him dread his job, and then he's going to start wringing his tail or chomping at the bit or some other stuff, okay? So don't drill him. Get a little something done, work on it for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and then, leave, walk out of it, and just let him relax. Pitch him the slack, let him relax. But once you've got the excess energy out of him and he's kind of looking for a break, looking for some rest time, that's when you want to work on your stop. And when you do work on your stop, again, don't drill him on it. Okay, stop him 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, and that's it. I mean, even 6 times is probably overdoing it. I see so many people, drill their horse, stop them and stop them and stop them and stop them. And 2 things happen. Number 1, they get sore. And number 2, because they get sore, they don't want to do it. They don't want to do it. Or it makes them dread it. If your horse dreads his job, it's going to be, bad things are going to happen. Don't cause your horse to dread his job. Teach your horse to lope straight. Now, when you're first teaching the stop, it is pretty darn important that you can get your horse to lope straight. I mean, if he's zigzagging all over the place, you're not going to get a good stop. So you might start out, training him to stop while you're parallel to a fence. You're loping him, 5, 6 feet away from the fence. The fence will keep him straight. But as he gets farther along, you want to teach him to lope straight right down the middle of the arena. And sometimes we'll do what's called fencing, which means we'll start at one end of the arena and we'll lope them all the way to the other end of the arena until we reach the fence. Until they realize that we're going to go from fence to fence and we want you to go straight. Now, while you're doing this, if the horse starts to veer off, let's say you start loping down the arena and your horse starts veering off to the right. What you want to do is immediately pick him up and guide him strongly to the left. Basically, you're saying, no, 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 no. I didn't ask you to go to the right. Get over to the left. And the next time you go down, if he starts veering off to the left, you take him to the right. Basically, what you want him to understand is that he needs to go where you point him and stay on that course. And if he, and he's supposed to stay on that course on his own. And if he doesn't, you're going to correct him. Next tip. Now, in this tip, this is what works for me. And you might want to experiment with it. Some people do this and some people don't. It works well for me. I teach my horses that if I'm not actively asking them to go, they're supposed to stop. At the very least, slow down. So let's say, I'm urging my horse to go forward with my legs or my feet. And he can feel that I want him to go. I've got my body, leaning forward a little bit to ask for speed. I might even cluck to him a little bit, And when it's time to stop, I will say the word whoa, whoop, sit down on my butt, and let my legs go totally limp, totally relaxed. So I'm no longer, it's real easy for him to tell that I'm no longer asking him to go forward, okay? So I get him to the point where I really don't even need to say, whoa. All I got to do is just sit down and relax my legs, and they drag it into the dirt, And I like that. That works well for me because it works both for reining horses and it works well for cutting horses too. So, that's part of the training I like to do. Now, other trainers will do it differently. They will teach their horse to just, go whatever speed they put them in. And then when they want to stop, they'll move their feet away from the horse. And that, that does work. The only thing that I don't like about it is that it's an obvious cue to the judge. And if I'm judge, it just looks bad. It just looks bad because I see some people throw their feet, way out. In an obvious cue. And really, really good horsemanship, the end result should be being able to get the horse to perform with cues that are almost imperceptible to the eye. You want those cues to be as invisible as possible. And when a judge sees that, it's impressive. When your horse drags his butt in the dirt and the judge didn't see you do anything that was obvious, yeah. So I encourage you, don't make any, big moves for any of these cues. Same with your rein hand. You want your rein hand to not move very much when it's time to stop. And that's why it's so important to have him so, light and responsive. And that lightness and responsiveness, it's not difficult to get. I mean, it really isn't. If your horse, even halfway tries, it's not that hard to get. But here again, if you watch, my videos on how to get that, you need to follow the instructions to the letter. Don't take anything away. Don't add anything. Just follow the instructions to the letter, and it'll work well. Okay, next tip. It's kind of related to the last tip. If your horse isn't listening, because a lot of times you're riding and the horse gets distracted, he's looking at something off in the distance or something, and this relates directly to being light and responsive. If I ask a horse, lightly, and he doesn't respond, I give him the benefit of the doubt. I might ask him again, maybe just a little bit stronger. And then the third time, I'll ask him a little bit stronger. And if he still isn't trying, that fourth time, I mean, I really ask strong. And I might even do what's called doubling, which is basically pulling their head around and making them go the opposite direction, all in one motion, no hesitation. And I might do that, 3 or 4 times right in a row. Double them, let them go 2 or 3 strides, double them again the opposite direction, go 2 or 3 strides, double them again, and that'll really get them doing 2 things. It'll make them pay attention and lighten up, and it'll also really, really make them want to stop hard. You do that several times until he wants to stop on his own, and you've made your point. You don't have to do it anymore. And after that happens, I'll let him think about it, just walk them around, let them cool out, let them think about it. Then I'll ask them to stop again real lightly. And hey, 9 times out of 10, they'll just drag it. And when they do drag it in the dirt, that right then and there, pitch them the slack, pet them on the neck, good boy. Sit there for a minute or 2. Maybe get off, loosen up the cinch, walk them back to the barn, unsaddle them. Let them know that stopping is a good thing and gets rewarded. And once they really understand that, once they've thought about that and understand that, they will crave stopping. The horses that I have in training that I've had for a while, they're always asking me, is it time to stop, Larry? Is it time to Now, they're not doing it verbally, of course. They can't speak. But I can feel it in their body. They are ready to stop. We'll be loping, and I can feel their body ready to check. They're going like, is it time? Do you want me to stop? You want me to stop? And when that's happening, I have my legs on them to go, no, we're still going. I'm still urging you forward. But if it is time to stop, I quit riding, let my legs relax, and let them drag it. That works so good. Well, that works so good for me, okay? Each person is an individual, and each horse is an individual. And sometimes, you just need to experiment to see what works best for you and what works best for your horse, okay?
I hope you liked this video. If you did, go ahead and click that like button and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so YouTube notifies you when I upload a new video. Leave your comments and questions in the comment section below the video. Oh, and don't forget to go to my website and get that free membership. It'll give you access to all kinds of good stuff. You'll learn a bunch. I'll have a link to it down below also. Okay, that's all for now. Take care.